TSB Means Business, a program brought to you by the Savings Bank. My name is Pete Johnston. I'm the Senior Commercial Banking Officer at TSB, and I will be your host for today's program. Joining me today are my colleagues Janice Casoli, Senior Vice President and Trust Officer at First Financial Trust. Welcome, Janice.
Thank you.
Kathy Boyle, Senior Vice President and Chief Fiduciary Officer at First Financial Trust. Another colleague. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you.
And our guest, Attorney Patrick Curley, a certified elder law attorney from Wakefield's own Curley Law Firm, LLP.
Thank you, Pete.
Pleasure having you here. Thanks all for joining me. I have a series of questions in the script that I've been given, and I may go off script, so I'm just warning you all now that we may go in that direction. It's my way of not being asked back, so no, I'm kidding. So today, we're going to be talking about the importance of having estate planning and the best courses to take when it comes to arranging your estate. Whether you're young, old, or somewhere in between, it's an important part of our life planning that we do this. So before we discuss estates and estate planning, Janice, can you please tell us all a little bit about what First Financial Trust does?
Well, thank you, Pete, for having us here. So First Financial is a national chartered trust company. We were founded in 1989, and we specialize in wealth management and acting as trustee for people's estate plans. So under the national charter, there's only 60 across the United States. We are governed by the OCC, which is the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency. So we can act as trustee across any state. And our job is to administer trusts according to the donor's wishes that they executed with their estate planning attorney.
Okay, perfect. That's great. That's a great overview. Kathy, can you tell me what some of the benefits of a client working with a trust company like FFT are? And secondly, because you are the Chief Fiduciary Officer, maybe you can talk a little bit about what being a fiduciary means in your corporate capacity at FFT.
Sure. So thanks for having us. Yes, as corporate trustee, we can offer more experience than the typical individual that would serve as trustee. Our team is made up of investment officers, trust officers, and we have familiarity with trust administration and tax returns, investment management, where sometimes an individual wouldn't. And as far as a fiduciary, so our duty as a fiduciary is in the best interest of a client. So all decisions we make, including investment decisions, are not made for our benefit at all. They're purely made for our clients.
Yep. So I was thinking about the idea of a fiduciary and how important it is to line up with someone who has my best interests in mind if I'm doing work. By the way, I'm a client. I don't know if I can tell you that, but since I told you, it's not a matter of confidentiality, everybody. So, and I certainly appreciate the work that you guys have done with me and my family on things. It's been great. And FFT is actually a wholly owned subsidiary of the Savings Bank. So not only are you our guests today, but you're also colleagues of mine through our mutual connection with the bank. So it's great to have that. Not all local banks have that, so we're glad that we do at the Savings Bank. Patrick, as an attorney, an elder law attorney, what would you say your specialty is? I think I just gave it away. And what type of clients do you mostly work with?
So in our practice, we focus on estate planning and elder law. And because folks who are younger than 50 often feel immortal, they don't often come to think about planning until they get to their 50s. So our sweet spot is helping clients typically who are in their 50s or older, and we help clients who are all the way up to 100 years old or beyond. And when we're helping folks, if we think about the types of clients, roughly half of the clients are doing what we call advanced planning. So they're alive, they are relatively healthy, or they have their capacity to make decisions, and they want to do estate planning, which you might think about including wills, trusts, advanced directives for healthcare, finances. And so they put this in place to achieve various goals. That's about half of the practice. And another half of the practice is what we call crises planning. Something's happened. Someone's got sick, someone had a fall, someone needs more care, maybe one of them has passed away, and now we've got to figure out, okay, we've got our foundation, our plan in place. Do we need to pivot in some way to address their current needs?
So everybody just doesn't automatically have an estate plan. You have to actually do something.
You're absolutely right. Now, in a sense, you do have a plan. If you fail to plan, the legislature of Massachusetts is going to decide for you where your assets go. And largely, it might not be where you might want them to go. And we see that happen too frequently. Folks won't plan or don't plan, and then life throws a curveball, and the state decides where their money goes.
Yeah. Oh, for better or worse, in this world we live in, death is part of life. And estate planning is a way to handle things like these crises and death and these types of events and nursing homes and memory care units and family distribution of assets and just all those fun things. So what would be some of the advantages of having an estate plan besides knowing that if you don't have one, that decisions may be outside of your control?
Absolutely. So the first thing I'd say is doing your estate planning is the best gift that you can make to your family and loved ones. It is a true gift because now you're planning, it takes the burden off of them, it helps you preserve your own independence in the future, it helps preserve assets for those that you love, so it's a tremendous gift. In terms of what kind of goals can people achieve through estate planning? So for my wife and I, we have a 9 and a 12-year-old. One of the key goals is setting up that if something happened to us, we want to be sure we've got guardians appointed who can raise our children. We want to be sure that our savings, our home, can be protected for them until they reach an age where they're old enough to have sense of managing that. And if you don't do that kind of planning, when someone turns 18, the law says they would get their inheritance, and very few people today at age 18 have the maturity to do that. Once you get beyond, into your 50s and 60s, now you're thinking about that next chapter of your life. So you're thinking about, well, can we avoid probate? Probate is the process where when an individual dies, the will is filed in the probate court, and now you have to slog through what might be a year or multiple years going through the court process. Many families want to avoid probate, and they do that through trust planning. And other folks are looking to reduce estate tax burden. There's a Massachusetts estate tax, and so planning can help them reduce that. Other folks are thinking about, geez, what if one of us gets sick? Geez, we're in our 70s. What if one of us gets sick and needs nursing care? Can we help preserve and protect assets? Some families have a special needs loved one or child or someone who has addiction issues, and they're trying to protect assets to make sure that individual's quality of life can be as high as possible while still preserving the assets. So there's a lot of different goals that can be achieved through estate planning.
Yep. I can tell you're a certified elder law attorney. That was great. That was a great overview. And it's interesting because as we talk today, there's certain industry lingo that I think we all use that we all know what we're talking about, but I think all of you are doing a really good job of kind of breaking it down into the parts that lay people who don't do this all the time can really understand. Janice and Kathy, I know that you talked about the fact that FFT, for example, can be a corporate trustee. Not every wealth management firm has the capacity to do that. And you express the importance of looking for that when you're looking for a wealth manager or someone to manage your assets. I want to ask Patrick, are there advantages to having a corporate trustee from your perspective?
Well, unquestionably. So what we see today is that more folks are living longer, but they're having periods of disability, and in many cases outliving their families or friends. So you have more people who don't have natural decision makers who can help them if they are to get sick or lose capacity, or if they pass away. And so for families in that situation, First Financial Trust can make perfect sense because they have a local trustee. They can meet with them. We've had clients work with Janice and Kathy. They can meet with them, understand who's going to be involved and what they can do. So it helps families where they don't have natural decision makers. In other cases, we see a lot of dysfunction, right? Every family has its own dysfunction in certain ways, some more dysfunctional than others, and we don't make judgments, but where a family, and particularly the children, can't get along, it can be incredibly valuable having a corporate trustee so that if the senior, so to speak, loses capacity or passes away, the independent trustee steps in. They can administer the plan with fairness, with accuracy, with proper legal and financial and accounting advice, and it takes away that fear of one child's doing something against the others and disputes. So that can be an enormous solution. Another example where the corporate trustee can be valuable is that, historically, in certain families, if a child had special needs or other certain particular needs, sometimes the parent or parents might decide, oh, we'll leave all the assets to the other child or children. They'll take care of their sibling with special needs. And it's based out of love, but the problem is that life is more complex than that. And if you leave all the assets to the other kids to take care of a special needs child, what if the other kids get divorced? What happens when they die? Where did those assets go then? What if they get sued in a car accident? And so instead, they can set up a trust for their disabled or special needs child and have an independent corporate trustee like First Financial serve in that role to manage those funds independently to protect the quality of life of the individual.
I got the sense that some families you've dealt with, maybe some families you've dealt with, have been subject to conflicts along the way. And so this is a great way to kind of deal with this with impartiality, fairness, accuracy, professionalism. I think it probably makes your job as an elder law attorney a little easier to have a corporate trustee. In most cases, probably not all, but I'm guessing in most.
So what we find is that in some families, they want to keep it internal, where it's a family member who's going to make decisions. That's great. If they feel that they've got a cohesive family, everybody understands that the individual they're naming to be trustee is going to understand and take on getting the right type of professional advice, they may be able to handle that. But in other families, it just isn't an option. And so there, it can give them peace of mind knowing that there is an independent trustee that's available. Yeah. And so it's something that we'll share with our clients, and it's something that they can explore on their own and talk with the trustees and see what they think.
It's one of many options.
It certainly is.
Yeah, no, that's good. It's helpful to know that because I don't think everybody just intuitively knows these things, right? I want to reinforce this again because you said it a little earlier, but if you don't have an estate plan and you pass away, what are some of the consequences that are associated with this? You kind of talked a little bit about it, but and maybe you said everything there is need to say, and if that's the case, say it again, because I think people need to know that.
Well, a few consequences. I mean, one would be that if the individual passes away and they have a probate estate, and a probate estate means that the decedent owns assets in their name alone with no joint owner and no beneficiary. So they're not in trust, they're not jointly owned, and there's no beneficiary. So if a decedent passes away with probate assets, then someone has to go to the probate court and file a probate petition. And the legislature, the laws of intestacy, determine where those assets are going to pass. And it may pass to family members that the decedent never had a relationship with, or worse, hated, right? There are people who literally hate some of their relatives. So it gives an individual control to be able to determine where their assets should pass upon their death. But it goes beyond that. If they don't do any planning, then estate taxes can be a greater issue than they need to be. In Massachusetts, if a decedent dies owning more than $1 million of assets, then they have a taxable estate. And, 40 years ago, $1 million meant someone was rich. Yeah. But today, if you think about Wakefield and surrounding towns on the North Shore, and you think about the price of real estate alone, you take someone's house, their retirement plan, their life estate, all of these things are included when counting that $1 million for the gross estate.
Pretty easy to get to $1 million.
You get there, and many of our clients don't feel like they're rich at all. But if given a choice, they would much rather pay, or their family pay less in estate taxes when they go. So if you just say, yeah, I'll let the legislator sort it out, the legislature is going to be delighted. They're going to take the money and repave the Tobin Bridge with your estate. And, you know, many clients, if given the choice, would rather not do that.
Yeah. Maybe they could put it towards the Sumner Tunnel. That might be. Well, I know you've mentioned, you've all mentioned, that FFT can serve as a trustee on an account for a client with special needs. I remember a story from years ago when, Janice, you and I were just getting to know each other, and I talked to you on the phone, and you answered your cell phone, and I don't know if you were on the roof, but you were in Florida dealing with one of your clients who had a need for some work to be done and for a contractor to be contracted with, and you were there acting as corporate trustee. Not giving any names, but that's a story that resonated with me because, you know, I think of people like us being behind our desks all the time, but it's certainly not always the case.
In First Financial, we are one of the few trust companies that does manage real estate. So, you know, as Patrick would say, you know, the property gets named into the trust, and then we would manage the property.
And that could include selling it?
Exactly.
You know, so
and maintaining it.
Do you think that this is a growing demographic, the kind of the special needs population? That it seems to me that it is, but you know, you would know because you're seeing it.
I think we're seeing it more and more. I think there's, like Patrick had said, there's more issues with addiction or you know, some type of special needs.
Yeah, special needs is a pretty broad umbrella in terms of it could be
exactly.
addiction,
If someone's on the spectrum, you know,
it could be a lot of different things.
We're getting a lot of calls from parents whose children are aging and the parents are aging, and that's when they're starting to look to us to step in.
Yeah, we don't think of these things when we're in our 20s and 30s, and I mean, I know you guys are still in your 20s and 30s, but
Exactly.
maybe you are because it's a professional requirement. But anyway, this is an interesting question. So, what are the tax ramifications or benefits for setting up an estate plan? We've touched on a lot of these things, but it's good to kind of recover them, if you will. Are there tax benefits?
Yes.
We said there are.
Yes, there are. So at our office at Curley Law Firm, attorney Lucy Budman works with me. She's also a certified elder law attorney, but after law school, she went on and got a master's degree of taxation law. So she's our tax guru. And when we're doing estate planning with clients, Lucy is working with them, talking to them about their tax goals. It's not just estate taxes. And I'll give you a little example of that. So sometimes clients think, okay, I'm going to give away, I've got a piece of real estate, I want to give it to my kids because that'll help me reduce my estate taxes. I'll get it out of my estate, I'm going to give it to the kids now, and then I'll have a lower taxable estate when I die. The problem is, more often than not, the parent bought the property for, let's say, $100,000. Today it's worth $1 million. Thank you. I was going to use the same number. It's worth $1 million today. They give the property away to the children. Yes, the parent's estate has now been reduced in value, but the problem is they just socked the kids with a huge capital gains tax hit. So when the kids go to sell the property, they owe capital gains taxes on the difference between the $100,000 mom and dad bought the property for and the $1 million it's worth. And the capital gains tax percentage, the hit, can be considerably greater than what the estate tax hit would have been for the parent. So we have to think carefully about the different types of taxes that we have as potential income taxes, capital gains, estate taxes, and we have to think and balance that. And so that's one of the areas that we're counseling clients, because you know, you can't just let one lead without thinking about the others.
Yep. Well, it truly is a family situation, I think. You know, when there are decedents and beneficiaries and all of the different vernacular that we've been using, you can't just think solo. It's not about silos, it's about a whole plan, and that's why planning is such an important, but you know, we throw the word around like somebody's a certified financial planner or they're doing their estate planning, and planning is a word that has some pretty rich meaning.
Well, I agree with you 100%. And in fact, when you are doing planning, you want to be sure you're working with an individual who is dealing with this type of planning day in and day out. And so Lucy and I became certified elder law attorneys. There's only about 25 of us in Massachusetts. You have to put many years of focused practice just in this area. You have to pass a full-day bar-style exam and meet all these other requirements. Another thing we have to do is we have to do dozens of hours of continuing education. And believe it or not, Massachusetts is one of the few states in the country where once you pass that bar and you're a lawyer, you never have to do another hour of continuing legal education. But if you want to be a certified elder law attorney, you have to. So we're very proud of that designation. But the point is, when you're a client, you want to be sure that your advisors are really well versed in this area of law. What I tell people is there's lots of different types of doctors out there, right? But if you have a heart issue, you can go to the podiatrist, that's a doctor, an excellent doctor. Or you can go to the cardiac surgeon. And which one are you going to choose? You want to work with the folks that you really feel confident have that experience to help you.
Specialists.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And that goes into play with us because, of course, we're administering the trust according to the way the estate planning attorney drafted it for the client. So, you know, we have seen in our careers drafting that's been horrible. And that's why you want to go to a specialist that specializes in estate planning.
And you know what, I was just thinking, it would probably be good if FFT had an attorney on their staff, someone that had their JD. You know, I know you're an attorney, you're not an attorney, I'm not an attorney.
But Kathy.
We have anybody who is?
Yes.
Yes.
That's good. Softball. I was throwing it out for you. So, Kathy, talk a little bit about the implications of your JD and what you do with your law degree.
Sure.
You know, within and financial stuff.
Sure.
I bring her all the stuff to read. Just you.
A lot of times, what I do is when we get a new client or an existing client and they do an estate plan, I just give it a second look, make sure we're willing to serve as trustee and that, you know, the document meets all the criteria. So we really like when we work with an elder law specialist because there's a big difference in some of the documents that come in for sure.
You know, there are a lot of attorneys who have practiced for 30, 40 years and have gotten into the later years of their careers and said, well, I'm going to help out some of my clients who have aged along with me and help them with their estate planning. And while that may work well in certain instances, it may not work well in other instances. And so you're a resource, probably even for some of your professional colleagues who may feel like, I've been asked to do some estate planning for one of my longtime clients. I don't feel equipped to the task. You know, can you help me with this, Patrick?
Undoubtedly, yes. Yeah, that's something we do. We help other attorneys, but obviously other professionals too. And I want people to look good. So if you're a referring individual, I want to do a good job so they look good in making a good referral.
Yep. No, it's good. It's so we talked a little bit about real estate and how that could fall into the estate plan. Many times, the senior may still be living in the home, and so there are. What are the implications in a really broad sense as to how that all goes? There are ways to protect the assets so that the senior can have
Or life estate.
life estate, and maybe talk a little bit about that. Whoever wants to.
I'll start. When we're serving as trustee in that situation, I think we offer a real benefit because we can take a lot of the bill paying directly. So, you know, sometimes there are a lot of workers in the home, and by taking statements and bills, we avoid, you know, just any foul play.
Somebody coming in and taking the mail. Like we have a bunch. We go to the homes all the time, collect the mail. A lot of times we have the bills just sent directly to us so that we can, you know, take care of that.
Yep.
I just had one the other day that the washer dryer went, so, you know, I had to get a washer dryer for them. So, I mean, we take care of that whole burden.
Did you install it, Janice?
I did not install it.
The Janice I know would have installed it, so.
I did not. But it's perfect for that situation.
Yeah, it's right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting because, you know, one of our recent programs was with a guest from Mystic Valley Elder Services. and he was talking about elder law scams and fraud and things that go on. And certainly we see it sometimes at the bank. You
Yep.
guys see it at FFT. I'm sure you see it as well in your practice. And it can come from all quarters. It can sometimes come from other family members or friends.
And I'm on the fast for the state. You know, it's financial abuse for elders,
Yep.
and it's usually a family member. You know, it's sad to say, but it's the family member.
The
that's the one
advice that our
that's-
guest gave when we had the program was just tell the senior not to answer the phone. Which, you know, I think the dynamic is often some of these senior citizens who are living on their own, they want to answer the phone because they come from a time, like, unlike all of us, who, how dare you call me?
Yeah.
But, you know,
want
when
someone
the
to talk
phone
to.
rings in a senior citizen's home, often they want to answer the phone, even if it's just to hear another voice. So, and bad things can happen, for better or worse.
Exactly.
It's just
'Cause
the
they know.
world we live in. Yeah. So, we're winding down our time. I would like to know, round robin style, if any of you have any kind of final advice for our viewers, you know, even for us amongst ourselves, is in terms of just what would you say to someone about estate planning? You know, you've got your 30-second elevator pitch, if you will.
Oh, I would just say definitely go see someone that specializes in elder care to have your estate plan done.
And don't put it off. I know a lot of people like to think you have time, but it's worth doing it. It's worth using a specialist for sure.
So they didn't use their 30 seconds fully, so I'll take some of your time. I'll add to what they said, and I agree with you completely. Not all estate planning is created equally, and in hearing from Janice and Kathy, obviously, the devil's in the details. It's in the words. So if at the top of the document it says durable power of attorney, that's great, but it's really what powers did you grant to the agent to make financial decisions over you? If the top of the document says irrevocable trust, that's great too, except what are the powers and authorities that are listed in that document? So you want to be sure that it's done correctly. A lot of folks who are older may have an existing estate plan, or they did it some decades ago, and the laws have changed greatly. And so it's really vital that they see someone who's doing this, and an attorney who's really skilled at it, and have them review it. See if it's correct, see if it's up to date. One of the things we see, particularly with married couples, is that, you know, a lot of folks have I love you wills or trusts. So if I die, everything passes to my spouse, which is wonderful, particularly when you're younger. But what if your spouse is older, maybe having health issues, maybe even incapacitated or already getting extra care? If one spouse dies and leaves everything to the spouse who's not doing well, it can truly jeopardize the whole estate. So that's an area that we talk to clients about. How can we fix this? How can we achieve your goals of protecting your loved one without risking everything?
No, that's good stuff. It's fascinating to me how we really literally could talk about this for hours.
You're right, you could.
I'd enjoy it.
I know you would. I'm not sure if these two would, but you guys have done great. I know this isn't your favorite thing to do, and you know, once upon a time when I first started joining the show, it wasn't one of my favorite things to do either. But I feel like we're helping people. I feel like people are hearing things that they need to hear. You know, the information discussed is timely, it's helpful.
It's very important.
And it's, yeah, I mean, it's appropriate. So, Janice, Kathy, Patrick, I want to thank each of you for joining the show today. As I said, we hope that what we've discussed has been helpful to all of you, and we will be back soon with another episode of TSB Means Business.